Hello friends. Today we'll be talking about the Manifest Delusions series, which includes Beyond Redemption and the second book, Mirror's Truth. So before we get into the review, I always like to mention, if someone's new here, how I format my review or let's talk about videos. I'm weird about spoilers. So whenever I review a book or give you my thoughts on a book, I won't give you a beat by beat of what happened. I won't spoil anything for you. I don't want to take away that experience from you. I'm really weird about that. I like to experience a book for myself. I don't like someone to tell me their reactions to certain things. I like to go into it blind if I can. Sometimes I don't even read the synopsis. So I won't do that for you. I'm just going to tell you my takeaways, my thoughts coming away from the book, and then you can decide whether or not it's for you or not for you. Now, with that said, I will be giving you just a little bit about the world, because the world building and the world in this series is so creative and so great that I'm going to give you a little bit, but I'm not going to give you anything that happens. I'm not going to spoil anything for you. It's just a quick mention of how this world works. So the first book in the series is Beyond Redemption, and Beyond Redemption sets up the world, kind of the rules, how everything works, and a group of characters and their journey in this world and this storyline. And there's a lot of different characters, but it focuses on the world and it builds it all up. The second book is Mirror's Truth, and in Mirror's Truth, it is more character focused. I think it's more focused on the characters and what they're going through, and it narrows the scope a little bit from the first one. There are some really good twists and turns in the second book that I did not see coming with these characters. And in the second book as well, there's some really, the best way I can describe it is epic. And I hate to describe things as epic because it sounds like I'm copying out there, and not you, Epic Tales, you're awesome. But the action in Mirror's Truth, there's some really knockdown, drag out moments that remind you of a really big budget action movie, like this really big epic fight that they're having. The world that is built is so creative and so different. I can't help but love it. So I'm going to give you just a little bit about the world. I won't spoil anything for you. It's just a little bit about how the world works. And that is, in this universe, the insane people rule. So if you have the insane people have delusions, and these delusions become reality, and reality bends to their delusions. So if you're insane, you can manifest delusions. You can make them reality. Now, some of you may be saying, well, that sounds boring because the most insane person will rule everyone, and that one most insane person will just be top of the hill and no one else can ever do anything about them. Well, there's controls in place to prevent that from happening. And the way I like to describe it is it's almost like a star getting too big and then it just collapses on itself. So there is a line you can cross if you're one of these people who can manifest delusions, and there's a ton of different types of different powers that you can have, abilities. It's so cool. But if you become too powerful, if you become too insane, you can collapse on yourself and you can't control it anymore. Now there's other layers to this world that I don't want to spoil, but there is more to it than that. That is just surface level stuff. And while it makes me happy thinking about it, the books are very dark. They're very depressing. It's almost like you crawl into a hole when you read it. You crawl into a dark place when you read it. It's like you get immersed in this world, and it is very dark. It is very bleak. It can be a little much for some readers. And all the characters are beyond redemption. There's really no good characters. So if you're one of those people who likes to have a good character to root for, if you can't root for the bad people, then this may not be for you, because none of these characters are very, very good people. They're all terrible. And in this world, it makes sense that they have to be terrible to survive in this type of world. But if you're one of those people who likes to have someone to latch onto, you have to have someone good to kind of hitch your wagon on, you're going to have some trouble connecting to these characters if you depend on that to connect to characters. Now, while the world is very bleak and very dark, there's a ton of humor in the series. There's a ton of funny moments, really dry, droll humor that breaks up that darkness. When I read these books, I read them with a group, and we had a discussion with Mr. Fletcher to discuss each book individually. So if you're interested in those, I will link those above and down below if you'd like to see them. They are spoiler filled, and then also available on the podcast if you would rather listen to the audio version. If you can't sit on YouTube and watch those, it was a really fun time to get to pick Michael's brain on how what went into the books and just his thoughts going into it. And at the time, he did mention that Mirror's Truth was, he planned another book in the series, and he said he kind of had to get into the right headspace to start writing the third book because it is very dark for him too. But if you're one of his Patreons, you know that he is working on the third book, and we've been getting bits and pieces of it. So I'm really excited that that third book is coming. And I think we're not that far away from that book being released. So I'm really excited. If you want to get into a series like this, it's a perfect time because that third book is on its way. It is being worked on. It is coming. So it might be a good time to jump on if you want to jump on and kind of catch it as it's coming out and be part of that experience. Whenever some of my horror reading friends ask me for advice on what type of fantasy books to get into, say, I love horror, but I want to get into fantasy. What books would you recommend to me? And I always tell them Beyond Redemption. If you're a horror reader wanting to get into fantasy, this is a perfect book for you. It is violent. It is dark. It is super creative, the world, and it's almost, I think it may even dip into horror a little bit. I think there's bits and pieces like the overall theme and feel. It is very horror-esque. So if you are a horror reader wanting to get into fantasy, don't know where to start, pick up Beyond Redemption, give it a try, open your mind a little bit to it. But I think you'll really like it if you want to get into fantasy as a horror reader. So I wanted to mention that because I always tell my horror friends, pick up Beyond Redemption. If you want to get into fantasy, it's a great place to start. So have you read the Manifest Delusions series? If you have, let me know down below what you thought of it. As always, I hope this review was helpful. I thank you for watching, and I will talk to you soon.